What's going on, y'all? I'm out here in the shop working on these Fox bodies, and in this episode today, I'm going to be putting the 408 short block together that's going in this Mustang behind me. I've got the block back from the machine shop. I'm going to be putting a steel crank in it with main studs. I'll be using Eagle H-beam rods with Icon forged pistons, and I'm going to show you every step that it takes to put this short block together. So let me shut up and let's get it. The first thing I'm going to do is get the crankshaft in it. And I'm starting to develop a little bit of surface rust here, so it's really time to get this engine together. I've got a lint-free cloth here, and I'm just going to wipe this block down one last time. This thing just came from the machine shop, so all of the bolt holes and everything have been chased, so I don't have to do anything like that, but I do want to make absolutely sure that everything is nice and clean before I start assembling anything. So now I'm ready to put the bearings in it. I haven't decided on how much detail I'm gonna get into on assembling an engine, but one thing I'll go ahead and point out is that when you have your main bearings, you're gonna want to identify the top and the bottom. The top is gonna have an oiling slot in it, and if you look at this block, you'll see that it has oiling passages in it. So that's how you know which way the bearing goes. Now the only difference between 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 is that number 3 takes this different looking type of bearing. I'm not going to get into all the details, but you can definitely see the difference in these, and this is always number 3. And the way to install them is by looking at the tang on the bearing that you probably can't see. And there's also a notch in the block. You just line the notch up, make sure you have the oiling slot open to the oiling passage on the block, and you'll have your bearings installed correctly. Like you've probably heard me say in other videos, you know, everybody has their own way of doing things. And what I'm going to do, I've kind of decided that I'm going to explain what I'm doing, then I'm just going to do it because I really need to concentrate on what I'm doing when I'm assembling an engine. Once again, this is the way that I like to do it. We're using main studs in this application, so I like to put the bearings in the block, then lubricate them because you don't want to have any dry bearings anywhere. Can't have anything like that. Then I'm going to install the studs. After that, I'm going to put the crankshaft in it. If I was to put the crankshaft in it first, I wouldn't have any room to get to my studs, and ARP recommends that you only put the studs in hand tight. They say you can use Loctite on them for a more permanent application, but that's not the way I like to do it. Then I'll load the main cap bearings and I'll put the caps on and torque everything down. The engine assembly lube I'm going to be using is probably a little bit different from what you're used to seeing. Most people I know use this Ultra Slick, and I do use this, but I only use this if I'm going to put the engine together and get it right in the car and fire it up. If it's going to be sitting like this one is for probably a week or maybe 2 while I get the rest of the suspension, fuel system and stuff installed, I like to use this assembly goo, and it's more of a paste, so I know it's really going to hang in there, and if it sits for a while, it's not going to go anywhere. Got to be real careful here, guys. You don't want to nick anything. I've got all my bearings installed in my main caps, and I've got them lubed up with some engine goo. So let's get these installed. A couple of things to remember or look for is that they are marked 1 through 5, and I'm actually starting with number 5. Number 1 would be at the front of the engine. And the other thing to remember is that they also have an arrow on them that points towards the front of the engine. ARP wants you to use their assembly lube on the threads of the studs before you install the washers or the nuts. Then they want you to go by the factory torque sequence. And these are going to get torqued to 110 foot-pounds in 3 equal steps. I'm ready to install the rings onto the pistons, and I'm just going to show you how to do it on this one. But each manufacturer has a way that they want their rings installed, so I'm going to be sure and do it that way. The main thing that you want to make sure of is that you don't line up all of your ring gaps on top of each other like that. You want them to be offset. In this instance, they kind of want them offset like that. Sometimes they'll be 180 out, but if you just follow the manufacturer's instructions, you won't have any issues with your ring sealing. I know everybody is gonna have comments about me not using ring pliers, and that's what's great about the internet, but I've always done it this way. You just have to be careful not to expand the ring too much because you could possibly bend or break it. And I like to start with the bottom ring or rings, and there's 3 of them that fit in this bottom groove. So just take your time and make sure you install them correctly. Now I'm ready to install the second groove ring, and these usually have a dot or some type of mark that indicates up. And all that means is that the dot or the mark goes up towards the top of the piston when you're installing it. But once again, be careful not to expand the ring too much when installing it. Okay, so that one is installed with the dot up. And then you've got the top ring, and it has a dot or mark on it as well. So you're going to put the dot facing up towards you, just like you did on the second ring. And once again, you're going to be careful not to expand the ring too much because you don't want to warp or break it. And there you go. I've already turned the block, so the piston will go straight down in the bore. And I've cleaned everything that needs to be cleaned. I'm about to load the bearings on this first piston. It just has a little tang on it, similar to the crank, and you just load it. And then I'm gonna put some of my assembly goo on there because this motor's probably gonna be sitting for a week or so before I get to install it. Gonna be a little liberal with it there. Just gonna make sure none's on the end of the cap. So this piston is now ready to go in. And I'm gonna be using a tapered piston ring tool. I've never used the tapered one before. I always use the old school one that kind of ratcheted around it and tightened around the rings that way, but that thing was such a nightmare, and I've built a ton of engines with that thing. But every time you try to use it, it seems like half the time the ring would snap out of your compressor and get caught on the block, and you'd have to do it again. It just turned into a nightmare. So I decided I was going to try this tapered one. So let's see how easy or how hard this is. And I'm also going to check to make sure that my rings are where they are recommended to be, and everything looks good. I'm also double checking that the dot is up, and it is. I need to spin that ring just a little bit. So let's see how hard or easy this thing is to use. And I've got it upside down, so it's going to be really hard. Part 2. So you just basically have to make sure that the ring fits in the tapered side there. So there you go. Now, I'm just gonna make sure that the piston skirt is in the bore, so that way all I have to do is push this in. Oh my goodness. That was unbelievably easy. I should have bought one of these 20 years ago. But nevertheless, I've got one now, so. So I'm just loading the other bearing in the cap. And I'm going to put my assembly goo on it, on the bearing. And each one of these caps is marked, so I know what piston it goes into. But being as it just came back from the machine shop, I don't even have to do that. But I just like to keep everything in order, so that's what I'm going to do. Going to put the ARP Moly lube on the bolt. Then we'll torque them to spec. I'm gonna roll it around so it's a little easier to get to. And the torque specs on these particular rod bolts are 63 foot-pounds. But once I get my rotating assembly together, I like to turn it over a couple times, 2 or 3 times, just to make sure that everything feels good and make sure there's no binding or anything like that. And yeah, this thing is moving nice and smooth. I've got the oil pump with the drive. Everything's ready to go. So let's get this installed. And I'm actually using aftermarket Allen-headed bolts. And I always like to check to make sure that I have clearance between the block, the oil pump, and my oil pump drive shaft. Don't know if you can hear that, but that's me moving the oil pump drive up and down. I've got plenty of clearance. Let's get the pickup tube on this thing. there shouldn't really be any issues, but I always like to check to make sure that the pan's gonna fit and not have any interference anywhere. And of course it fits just like you would expect. All right guys, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this one up, and I am stoked to have that short block together. I'm getting really excited about this project because this thing is going to be awesome when I get done with it. I know a lot of people consider the camshaft to be part of the short block, but I'm saving that for the next episode because I'm gonna make that more of what I think a Fox body guy would be willing to tackle, heads cam intake. So that right there tells you what the next episode is gonna be. And I'm gonna finish this long block. And guys, I promise you one thing, when we get done and I get this thing tuned, we're gonna take this thing out on the street and we are going to ignite some tires. But as always, guys, I appreciate you watching my videos, checking out my channel. If you would, hit the like and subscribe button. Share the channel with a friend. I would appreciate it. But as always, I'm busy, so I'm out.